seat here. There was a debate before on do I stand, do I sit, what makes sense. We got my notes printed, but I just wanted to start off, and I hope I'm able to connect with all of you and look at you in the room. So if I'm not, please forgive me. I'm going to try my best. Thank you for having me here. It is, I remember way back in the beginning of my career, when I started, I said that whenever there's going to be a call for something with women in anything, I will want to put my hand up, because when I was a part of those discussions as being more junior in my career, it really helped inspire me. No matter what level I was at, or they are at, or I'm at, I continuously learn something. And when I got to learn more about what this organization does and how they foster and try to build up the women in technology community, it really, really just, it was like a no-brainer saying, okay, I need to be here. And especially with everything that's going on, and as we think of AI, generative AI, how women need to play a role in that and how we need to be here, it became even more important. So I'm honored to be here kicking this off with you all. I am going to, talk for a little bit, but I do encourage, if you have any questions, we can do them along the way or near the end. But this is just for me today to kind of give you some thoughts on things that I think are going to help, that have helped me, to be honest, and that I think we need to think about as we move forward as women in tech. A lot about what I will talk about today is not, actually everything is not rocket science, but how we apply it to being women, and honestly, at whatever level you're at, wherever you're at, whether it's at home or it's at work, being a leader, and how you bring AI and the thought process around that is very important. So my presentation today is going to be on AI and leadership, and how you as a woman or can help make that journey for yourselves, your teams, anywhere, be successful. So as we all know, artificial intelligence and automation is changing everything. Like, automation has always been there. That's not something that's new. But how artificial intelligence and all the elements that are coming into it will change everything we do. It doesn't mean it's going to bring speed and efficiency, but it doesn't mean it's going to take away everything or take away the things that we need. And for me, this is what I said, it's how you're going to take this and transform kind of your navigation throughout that, your leadership style, and how you would work with your community, your workforce, in order to bring in more of the thought process versus the technical that's already there for you. So things the brain has to do in order to continue to lead and be successful versus what technology is going to bring. According to KPMG's recent global technology survey, I don't know if anybody from KPMG is here. I read a lot of those this past week. More than half, I think 55% of Canadian businesses think AI and machine learning are the most important technologies to help them achieve their business goals in the next 3 years. Again, not something transformative that you haven't heard before. But only 5% of people are actually making changes against their strategy and leadership in order to supplement that. So think of that dichotomy where we're moving in this fast pace, and we're investing in these technologies, doing all these things, but we're not necessarily thinking through, sitting back and listening to ourselves and saying, what do we need to do in order to make that successful? I will say my organization is probably one of them. We're doing all the things we can in order to invest in the tech and do it. We've got to do it fast. We've got to get ahead of the curve. We're going to be the first ones to do X, Y, Z. But then think through your business strategy. Think through what that means for you, right? And your leadership goals, in addition to how the people around you are going to play a role in that. So what are your other goals that are going to support that? Diversity goals, things like that. Nobody's really going through that journey, or at least we're not being as purposeful in that. So, AI will, in my opinion, will be able to take some of these little mundane tasks over and allow for productivity and efficiency, but it's not going to take away at all the human element of leading. It can't take that away yet. 20, 30 years, I don't know what's going to be there, but at the moment, we don't see that. And as leaders in the room here, whatever is required to be authentic and use human intuition, critical thinking, creativity, if you just think back to the best leaders you've had, as whether they're women or men, and allies, all that, they aren't the ones that are the most technically strong, right? So if you think of like a robot, you're not looking at a robot. They're the ones who have the EQ. They're the ones who have the creative thinking and the critical thinking, all those little elements. So those are things I think as we think through how does AI impact us as women in leadership, the leadership capability is going to be the most, like a really strong capability to have. So with that, I will start the presentation. Am I doing it right? Okay. So with AI and leadership, there's a few things that I thought would be helpful to talk about today. When you're in an organization, or you are in an organization, creating that culture of curiosity, experimentation, and an optimal mindset. I'll talk about that a little bit more, but really it's as self-explanatory as it is in the statement, but the optimal mindset is the one that I think is a little bit different. Where you see AI playing a role in how you lead is how you create the mindset of how you're going to use curiosity and experimentation in that. I have found that within our teams, as we've been kind of developing some tools and capabilities with AI, what we've set as an optimal mindset for the team is, okay, this is the outcome we want to achieve with X. It doesn't necessarily have to be money-driven or business-driven, but it is the outcome we want to get to. And then the curiosity and experimentation kind of play a role in that. Second thing, which I was struggling, I think it's the most important thing, is learning, learning, and learning. So continuously learning, upskilling your teams, upskilling yourself, and being at things like this, learning from other really senior or junior folks in their career, the upward and lateral and downward learning. Like there's learning everywhere. I also think the biggest thing I've learned in my career is negative learning, right? And so how do you take that and bring that to what you need as a leader and within the new space, because everything's evolving so fast that you constantly, you can't necessarily read everything. You can't kind of Google everything. You really need to talk to people and be in places where you're absorbing from one another. This, I look at each of these things and it's like everything's the most important, but diversity, equity, and inclusion. As women, and I'm not going to say again, of course, it could work with men too, but we hold a different level of understanding and emotional capability for understanding and doing things. Whether that is work and developing and creating something, or it is working with people having a higher EQ at times, we have a very, very niche skill set as a gender that is going to help, at least I believe will help us with, as we lead through this, digital transformation or AI journey. We don't necessarily think black and white. We also think gray, right? And that is a big, big, big thing that we're going to need as we move into this kind of journey of AI and bringing that forward. Staying informed and adapting to change. Everyone says this, and it's the truth. Change is the new norm. You just have to be comfortable with what that looks like. A lot of the last two things, so rethinking your traditional leadership models. I know a lot of us I think the biggest talk we had during lunch was on where do people work and how are they working, and who's coming into the office and what are they doing, and how are we having the right people at the table to make decisions and how we move forward. Of course you need to, as there is an element of human interaction and seeing folks, but there needs to be some new ways of working together, whether that's it doesn't necessarily have to be remote, but it could be how do we bring in, now we have the ability to do so much with technology, how do we bring in people from around the world that can help us bring us more in terms of what we want to achieve on a specific, I don't know, product that we're creating. Or instead of flying halfway across the world to research something, you're able to bring them here, bring them virtually and kind of make decisions together. But you've got to really rethink the structure. It's, you know, do we co-locate? Do we have a hybrid model? What are those things? And I think that is something that we have to really bring together to be leaders in AI. And last thing is just, I always say this in every keynote or any speech that I'm at, is your health is the most important thing. You won't be able to do anything without it. So I always like to put that plug in at the end, no matter what, if it applies to anything you talk about. So that's the few things I want to bring up today. So creating a culture of curiosity and experimentation and optimal mindset. I just alluded to it a second ago, but one thing that I found in just an example of just last week was we're trying to solve the problem of bringing in an internal chat tool. So chat MFC is what we're calling it, right? It's not very creative, but that's what we're calling it. We have a few blockers because we are a financially regulated organization. We have to abide by certain things. There was something that was blocking the team from saying, okay, we can launch it this year versus next year. We already have seen how much people are doing outside of our traditional tool set at home and bringing, you know, emailing back to work, some of the things they're doing with using ChatGPT. I said, look, we don't have the opportunity to wait. We have to figure something out now. So what are some things that we could do as a team, as a collective? So what we did is we asked, this is no word of a lie, we asked our teams to go talk to their teenage kids about how they would, and this was an idea from someone on my team, how they would solve for this. Like, how would they, if they were given, like if their parents said they could never use the internet again, this was a question that my teammate asked. If you could never use the internet in your house again, how would you find a way out of it? Like, how would you do these things? So I think that, like, they came up with a solution I can't share. But it was actually taking that and using that as an example of, like, you know, how can we take other things that are happening in our life, be more curious and get to this outcome that we want. We need to do this. We have to do this by a certain amount of time. We got to be ahead of the curve. We don't have a choice. It's going to happen no matter what. How do we get there? And what are the things that we could do instead of us doing our traditional thought process of, okay, let's go talk to risk. Let's talk to legal. Let's figure this out. And like, what are things we could do? And there was a solution. Again, still has to go through legal, but it's a solution. Solution that we came up with. So I think that setting your optimal curiosity mindset is how I say it. It's like, how do you get to where, how do you experiment? What do you need to do? Again, you know, there's always this, the show I watch where they ask the kids an adult question. And the answer was actually pretty simple, right? And so this is how, that's where they got it. There was a TV show, they're like, let me go ask my teenage kids. They seem to know these things. So that I thought was a good story to share. Learn, and learn some more. This is, again, it's not rocket science, right? This is just, now I think the pace is the difference, right? And where and how you do it is the difference. Before, you know, I would like go and, you know, read articles. I read a plethora of articles, and we have internal like tools that help us understand what's happening in the marketplace. And, you know, you go to courses or you learn, you get more skills that way. But now it's just, who can you talk to? What are they doing? What are the networks you can build? And one thing I'm finding, especially with AI, the openness with talking to other organizations and people at other organizations, like my peers in the same role, it's just like amazing. And it's just that everybody knows this is something that's going to happen. We all are moving in this direction. We need to kind of figure it out together. We need to talk to each other. We need to really help each other, I guess. Like, and so that is, when I say learn, and like keep learning, it's really just, I would say it's more like, how do we absorb what's happening from everyone else? Like today, I would love to talk to folks about what they're seeing and doing internally and externally, what their partners, their friends, even internationally, what are things that are happening. I was in Asia last week, and I was at this forum, and like it was shocking to me how many people were just sitting there and just like, hey, let's compare notes, whatever you're legally allowed to share. Like, you know, and I think even as, you know, I've found from my internal, we're in a law firm, but, you know, my general counsel, I always talk to him. I'm like, what am I allowed to talk about? What am I not allowed to talk about? And he's like, honestly, a lot of this that, you know, as long as you're not using like, you know, financial information, you guys, we can learn from one another. So that I thought was important to share in terms of like kind of the pace and speed, like that's not the number one. But then obviously the traditional forms of learning are also very important. And when I talk about negative learning is obviously like in a leadership perspective, we've all had, I am sure, a leader in the past that may not have been the best leader we've had. You learn, but you also learn from those great leaders of what they did in times of like real change. And I try to remind myself, I'm like, what are the things that, you know, this is obviously the pace and speed we're at now is a little bit different, but there's always been change. There's always been things that have been going on. Like when the cell phone was introduced, like that's you know, it disrupted the world, it disrupted our workplace. I relate this more like to when the internet kind of came into the workplace, right? It's you know, what did we learn from our leaders at that time, and how can we take that and bring that forward? So, and the biggest reason behind this is that at the end of the day, there is a curve, and you got to stay ahead of that. So I found that kind of those little nuggets have been really helpful for my teams and our organization, and hopefully that'll work with you all too. Now, I said this, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And this is where being a woman in the workforce and a female leader comes in and is a huge benefit. The negative impact of AI is I wouldn't, there is a negative impact of AI. There is that whole thought of how there's bias in a lot of the things that are happening, right? So what's that? And it's learning, it's machine learning, right? So eventually hopefully that bias will go away, but we don't necessarily, I haven't seen it perfected yet. So that's where the human element comes in of how do we look at that, you know, negative impact. So I'm going to give an example. Last week I did a search and I said, can you help me write a report about IFRS 17? So it's the new accounting standard for financial institutions. You know, so our company did the tech, my group did the tech portion of it, and put it in my voice and please, and I'm just doing this just to test things out, right? Put it in my voice and add the element of how I had to do a lot of this while I was a mother of two, like all these like extra little nuggets, right? It gave me a report, it spitted it out, and it made me a male in that report. Even though I said 2 kids and perhaps struggling with being a mom, I didn't put in wife on purpose. I didn't want to put the wife thing in. So it assumed I'm a dad. I'm running it, you know, I'm a CIO at an organization and all these things. And so it's funny because as I thought through that, I'm like, this is crazy. Like there's still going to be some bias in there. And that's one example. But there's also, you know, things that if we think of, you know, being in a male-dominated role already, a lot of the folks that are using this technology, it's not the fault of the computer at the time. I'll talk about the stats in a minute, but about 72% of the workforce in the world in technology after a certain level is male, right? And so in tech specifically, not around the world. So like it's normal. If you have all these people going through and the ones that are writing all this stuff in there are adding to it, it's going to give that bias. So that's where I think it's, oh, yes, thank you. 10 minutes, I'll wrap it up. But yes, so you get the gist of the bias, but I think it's important for us to remember that this is something we really need to be mindful of as we move forward. So just being there. Oh my God, I sent the wrong version, guys. No, not in a bad way. I used to work in consulting, and the formatting's off here, and so that's why I just wanted to And so anyway, just ignore that. The growth needed to go down a little bit. Just adapting to change. This is something I said to my team. I'm like, the adaptability to change that we're going to have, it literally is the superpower. Like, this is something you really need to put on your resumes, right? Like, it's like, I can change, and I'm going to be, like, I am adaptable, like, I am resilient, they have all these courses on resiliency and whatnot, but because of what's happening now, the constant change that we're going through, just having that capability, which I believe we all do, given how much change our bodies go through, right? How much change everything that we all go through as, being in different parts of our lives, in different parts of our career, and as women, being mothers, wives, partners, having, taking care of family, all those things, like, not to say that men don't. I want to be very mindful because my husband's a great partner, and he always says, men do this stuff too. I'm like, I know, but yeah, so I think that is something that, we really need to hold near and dear to our hearts, that change that's going to be constant now, and it's the pace. It's not just the constant, the pace. I guess it's the rethinking traditional leadership models. This is I would say you could put this in anything, any presentation, but especially with how AI is going to play a role. It's like the traditional hierarchy structure will always not work, right? It may work sometimes, but in this case, because different, as I just said, a 17-year-old figured something out for us, right? 17-year-old almost figured it out for us. You really need to think about who and how you're getting all the information and be the leader in that case of taking it in. You're not going to be right always. I'm definitely not always right? So how do you make sure that as a leader and as you kind of take the information in for this, it's going to help you make the decisions and drive kind of that change faster, get to the end result faster and whatnot. I always think it's important to talk about. I will never not talk about health. I tell my dad, when we were kids, he always used to say to me, health is wealth. Like, that's our mantra, that's what we do. And the reason why I think it's really important is that in anything you do in your life, you don't have your health, you have nothing, right? And so it's just plain and simple. Prioritizing that probably is the most important thing you can do, even forgetting, like, where we're going, how we're going, where the world's headed, and everything that's happening. It's the one thing that's always going to be important. You're always going to be bombarded with things. You're always going to be faced with change and the pace of change and making decisions, and especially, in this day and age, it's so important. And physical, health can be everything, right? Like, of course, it's your physical health. That's the number one thing, but it's also mental, spiritual, if you believe in things like that. Like, everything plays a role in how you get to the end result. And so that's the biggest kind of ticket I'd like to make sure I end off with. But another thing I wanted to, so I'm going to just close off now and open up if there's any questions. But as we kind of progress in our careers, whatever they are, wherever you are in your career, whether it's journey, it's at the beginning, or if you're at the tail end, in the middle, wherever you are, I think the most important thing is to network and give back, and make sure that you're learning from one another. And so I said this at the beginning, I'll say this again, an organization like this and having events like this, and thank you to Avenue Code for putting this together with McCarthy Tetrol, it is important for us to always kind of help one another. And the reason I say this is the stats are not so great in tech, right? They're for women. 28% of women are in leadership globally. And that's good. It's better than 4 years ago. I believe it was 17%. So something like that, 17 or 18%. So it's moving in the right direction, but it's still, there's still 72% that's not, right? And that's leadership as a whole, right? So 34% of those are in tech. So that's a good thing. But I think the kicker is that 50% of women leave the tech organization by the time they're 35. So, That's when they've either developed something in their lives that may have impacted it, or they've realized maybe they've hit a ceiling that they may not want to be a part of, or they're probably part of some discussions. I'm just spitballing here, but these are just guesses I have of experiences I've had where you're sitting and it's all men and you're not getting the traction you want and you're not feeling as welcome. So things like this, I feel are so helpful so that you can see that there are other women that, have progressed and they have gotten to levels that maybe you want to get to and you don't need to leave the workforce or the tech workforce specifically in order to get there. So, that's kind of it's not necessarily AI related, but it is something that I think is a powerful message to keep in your mind. And these stats are as of August of this year, so they're very, 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 very recent. So if we can do anything, I hope we take away that we can help one another. And thank you for having me be here.
Thank you for that. Is there anybody who has any questions? I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but maybe we can just open up, because I know that part of a sisterhood and being here together is also sharing experiences.
Of course.
And I know I have one question, but maybe we'll just open it up. Does anyone have any questions they have about the journey? Maybe I'll just ask one. So obviously, I'm a little biased because I am in technology. I run an AI practice. How are you encouraging women specifically to in your organization about AI? Like, what are actual practical things that you're doing as a leader to kind of get women engaged?
So we have a Women in Technology organization internally, and even in my previous organization, we had the same. And what we've done is we have a hierarchy in there. It's mentorship and juniors and obviously mid-career as well. And what we do there is we actually bring in the new technologies that Manulife, that's where I am, at Manulife Financial, that they've brought. We have an organization internally that is an upskilling organization called Manulife University. And they come and present new technologies or practices or things that we are welcoming internally for folks to do. And what we've done within the Women in Technology group is we get them to come every month to present the new things. And especially now within AI, there's different things with Microsoft. We are a big partner of Microsoft. It's not a secret. And everything that's happening within Microsoft, they bring that in, and everything to do with AI that supports that, they bring that in as well. So we get everybody kind of brought up to speed to what is the world seeing, but then what can they do within Manulife to do that. So
you're creating a structure. You're creating the structure so women can learn and feel safe, I'm sure, as well as other people, but certainly also with women.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And that's wonderful.
Yeah.